Hey, good morning, everybody. Yeah, I know. What was that last one? It's a joke. It's a joke. Just a 10-minute loop of the audio because Rick said it's really easy to fall asleep to that as long as there's nobody talking. So, yeah. Pick a Rick. There you go, buddy. Anyhow, we were talking about composting. Obviously, the next step, in a sense, would be worm composting. Vermaculture. It's not for some people. I mean, you got to understand that in the nematode family, which is kind of where this comes from, there's a million different worms, and it's ringworm and tapeworm and blah 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 blah. All the ones that we all know of that we come in contact with. Well, if you're vermicomposting, wear gloves. Okay, you don't have to go all high tech and buy all these canisters and these towers and the this and the that's and the other. You can build them all. Okay, there's so many tips and tricks and what have you. They will treat your compost. See, and this is why I say take your compost. Good morning, Elliot. Again, they will take your compost, and this is why I say take your compost once it is cooled off and put it directly into your gardens, directly into your flower beds, because of their composting ability. They will take that compost and turn it into worm castings. They will process it in such a way that it is more biodiverse, bioavailable to the beginning of the food web. See, there's a vicious little loop right there in the food web, because your worms will devour anything they come in contact with to a point, provided it's not acidic. Okay? They don't like acidic soil. They like pH neutral. Some of your pests, on the other hand, the ones you don't want around, they like an acidic soil. So you see the balance? Well, it's kind of the same thing when you're talking about building a compost bin. You've got so many different types of pests that can attack and come in and what have you. There's some tips and there's some secrets and keep them off the ground. If they've got feet on them, put those feet in little cans of oil. A lot of your creepy crawly what have yous won't cross that oil in that oil container to get in and go after the worms and go after what else you've put in there. Let's see. I gotta kind of warn you here, because you can kill a worm bin with kindness, overfeeding, overwatering. You're going to get more out of your bed underfeeding than you will overfeeding. Now understand, if you have minimal excess with, after the 3 days of introducing your food and your table scraps and your kitchen waste, get that stuff out and get it into a compost pile. But give it a few days. Let the worms do their thing. Okay? I know a lot of people talk, they want to say, wait, the bedding versus the food scraps, I thought they were one and the same. No, they're not. The bedding is a moisture containing, like peat moss. Thing is, with peat moss, if you've ever played with it, the way it holds moisture is really odd. So what you want to do is soak this stuff, and I mean submerge it, drive it under the water for 24 hours. Then pull it out and wring it out until it's the consistency of a damp sponge, if that. And that's your bedding. Worms occupy, under ideal conditions, their normal vermiculture conditions occupy about 6 inches of your bin at the top. But you can have, especially if you're outdoors, you can have up to another foot of material below that. So you don't have to dig deep. They use this for temperature control. A lot of people are under the impression that worms come up for air. No. Worms don't have lungs. They have 5 hearts. They have 5 separate veins running through them to keep them alive. But they're basically a giant stomach. Food in one end and as we go. But they don't breathe like we understand breathing. They exude they exude a film, and they, in the same way, they take in air. They take in oxygen, and just like us, they exhale carbon. Okay, so it's all through the skin. They don't drown. From what my understanding is, worms won't drown. They'll actually get too much buildup of carbon dioxide in that film that exchanges the air for carbon dioxide, so they actually suffocate on the carbon dioxide if they're submerged in too much water or something along those lines. So you got to watch your compost bins. And you got to watch which animals specifically are going to be coming at your compost bins, which kind of bugs and which kind of this and which kind of that. But keep in mind, use gloves, use tools. Don't just reach in there barehanded. Other worms can invade. We're talking from microscopic on up. Okay. Pests and pest control. And a lot of people really, they don't understand this. Again, we're back into the neutral soils. You have fewer bugs in your soil if it's neutral, if it's pH balanced, if it's what have you. When I was, and again, we go back to the book. And I recommend going to your feed store. Absolutely. Go back to your feed store. You want crushed dolomite. You're just scratching your head going, what the heck? It's crushed limestone. No, we're not talking about putting lime in your soil. That's toxic when you talk about worms. I know a lot of you are like, well, wait a minute, your plants will get what they need in lime with amendments. Again, back to the book. But when you lime saturate a garden or a flower bed, okay, you're making it non-conducive to worms. Dolomite, on the other hand, crushed dolomite from a rock quarry. Okay, yeah, it's got other minerals in it. Your plants are going to be able to utilize those. But it's also got a pH neutralizing, a pest control element in it. So, visit these feed stores. I'm telling you, these guys know a whole lot more than obviously your box store. But get that crushed dolomite. You can get it in like 40-pound bags. So if you're building a bin, okay, just powder it on. Don't bury and saturate. You don't need to. It will soak into your worm bin. It will get in there and it will do its pest control. Ants are the one thing that'll kind of cross it, but that's why I say keep the thing in the air. If you get an infestation of ants, obviously dig it out, throw it away. They're not going to come back. They're not going to, because they smell the traces of it. Just dig it out and get rid of it. Again, cover your hands. This is a critical thing here. Some of us don't have an immune system that can handle that. But you want the worms. Okay. I mean, you got to understand, this is microbiology we're talking about here, or parasitology, or nematodology, um, uh, trematodes. There's all these fields all around this dealing with the nematodes, as you're understanding, or all the way up through worms. Now, if we're just going to talk earthworms, we're talking about 6,000 different earthworms on the planet. Okay. There's 2 that are superior for what we're asking for in our vermiculture. Just 2. I wrote it down. I did. Because I wasn't sure, and I wasn't sure I was going to pronounce it correctly. Well, I won't do it. We'll just say it's the red wigglers and the red worms. Okay, these are the 2 you really want to. These are the 2 you want to concentrate on. These are your vermiculture 2-month. They double their numbers in 2 months' time if the bin is correctly being utilized. Again, you've got to watch your foods. You've got to watch how long the stuff is sitting in there being eaten. If it's there for more than 3 days, now that doesn't apply to, like, if you put a watermelon rind in there. They have the ability to get away from it. We're talking about when you're cutting trenches in and you're putting in a little bit of food in your table scraps. Give that 3 days before you come back. Again, less is more. Don't overfeed. Don't just bury the bin and expect them to devour everything. It will actually turn the soil or the worm bedding acidic if the food's there too long. That's a problem, because you'll have a whole section the worms won't even go to. They'll stay on the opposite side of the bin, and you'll wonder why the food's not getting eaten. Well, it went acidic. Okay, a little bit of dolomite. Try and balance that a little bit. A little bit of ashes. Balance that a little bit. If you have to be away, that's how you balance that. Okay, but it's 3 days. Anything more than 3 days, remove it and get that out into your compost pile. Again, the bedding is extremely important, because you're just basically suspending a little bit of food in there for them to come in and work on. Hey, hippie chick. You know, this is the number one I've watched. Believe me, I've watched these other channels. I'm not knocking any of them, but when you see them laying in a half a box of food and food waste and scraps, they're doing this for video purposes only, because they're going to wipe out that entire bin. Too much food, way too much food. Back that thing off. It's less is more when it comes to a vermiculture bed. Yeah, I seem like I'm kind of balancing off of something here, and I am kind of balancing, not wanting to say something for the need of a different video. People need to understand this. A lot of people think that you're just going to go buy a bunch of worms, throw them in your trash, and you're going to have this incredible soil. No, you're going to kill your worms. It's going to become too acidic, too fast, boom, 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 and you've just wasted a bunch of money on worms. Yeah, you can use earthworms to do this, but they're not as efficient as your red wigglers or your red worms. They are 2 different worms. Okay? I'm not going to go into the identifications of them. You just order them in. It's just these things are extremely, extremely, extremely important. You're going to get your local area. A lot of these, you have to understand, a lot of these worms, a lot of these so-called earthworms, were wiped out during the Ice Age. A lot of these worms have been brought in from other countries to repopulate, because we've lost. But with over 6,000 different types of worms on the planet, I think we're okay. I think we're okay worm-wise. You know, It's some really neat stuff too. When you can take your compost pile, clean that thing up, and then turn around and put part of it in a bin as bedding, worms are still going to be eating that as they move. That's how they move. Hey, 320, they do their thing as they go through the soil and what have you, and they're constantly eating. I mean, they're just a giant, long, slender, well, okay, there's a few odd ducks, but and then my mind trails off again. I'm sorry. There's this what's it called? The Megascaleus australis. Can you imagine? Now, don't worry. You're not going to run into one of these because it would freak most people out. It only lives in one place. They've only found it in one place. They've tried moving it. It's in southeast Victoria. This thing is, get this, 3.3 feet long and 3/4 of an inch round. Can you imagine? As long as a yardstick. That's a worm coming up out of your soil. It's only one place they live, so don't. But there are others that are record breakers. You know, as you get into more tropical atmospheres and what have you, these are all worms. Like I said, there's over 6,000 different types of worms. We're interested in 2, but then we have all of these other invasive species. You know, there's like 30 different ones here in America. And as you get up into Canada, there's another batch and another 45 or 50 more. And so we're not hurting for worms. We are hurting on the opposite side of that because our pesticides absorb through their skin and kill them. Because, again, they don't have lungs. They ingest air through their skin and exhale carbon through their skin and through that slime. They're, in a sense, you could think of them as another carbon fixer because that slime is full of carbon as they're moving along through the soils. You know, and a lot of people sit back and say, well, wait a minute, nematodes, oh my God, they attack plants. No, worms do not. Worms themselves do not attack a living plant. They're after some of the microorganisms that grow on the plant roots. So that's why when I say ring the dinner bell and call in the worms, they're looking for stuff that's breaking down. Your best is compost. That's why you take your compost after it is cooled, after it's come back down off of its killing temperatures and its composting temperatures, and you use that for worm bin. So, hey, take a quarter of your compost off your compost pile, put it in a bin, and let's start worm composting. Let's start vermaculturing. Let's start chewing up that kitchen waste. And again, give it 3 days. If it's not consumed by the worms, toss it in the compost pile. Get it out. If it starts to smell, you could cause other problems. So get it out of there. You don't want acidic bedding in your worm bin because that's what we're talking about today, just the vermiculture part. You know, when you start thinking about how many different worm types there are and all the things we've got going on, and then they want to come out and they want to spray a pesticide or they want to spray this to get rid of mosquitoes or this or that or the other, and then wonder where all the worms went. So it's got nothing to do with you. Okay? It's not you. But when the city goes by with their pesticide truck, all your worms either go deep or leave the area and look for an area that has not been sprayed. This is why you got to kind of wash things. This is why you got to kind of watch things. I mean, we're almost to the point now where if we're not growing in greenhouses so that we can keep all that stuff out that the city's helping with, it's just madness. Well, that's the sprays. We have bugs. We have bugs. And you're supposed to. Mother Nature has bugs. It's this mindset. I don't even know what you would call it. Maybe elegant has a better term for it. But this mindset that every flying bug is a pest and we have to spray, we can't have bugs around, that's a mistake. That's a tremendous mistake. A lot of those so-called bugs, okay, they're going to germinate your flowers. They're going to pollinate. They're going to come in and do these things. You really gotta kind of, you almost want to attract bugs in for some purposes, and on other purposes you don't want them around. When it comes to your garden, if your soil's okay, your plants are going to be okay. And, again, I'm going to hesitate here because I'm going to lead into this other video I want to do with somebody, but there's a lot to know here when it comes to your soils, your gardening, what have you. A lot of people are under the impression that they're just going to be able to scratch the ground, drop a seed, and everything will be okay. And you're going to grow a garden. Anybody who has grown anything will tell you it's not that simple. There's stuff to learn here. Your survivalists, and hi Jerry, how you doing, buddy? Your survivalists, they need my book. They need other books. They're not gardeners. They're not going to survive. I mean, everybody sits back and goes, okay, well, we're just going to be able to go hunt everything down and we'll be fine. No problem. Blah, 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 blah. There's thousands of hunters in the country. There's not going to be this abundance like everybody thinks. The hunters are going to come back out of the cities and come after food, even if they don't know how to hunt. You're going to need to know how to garden. You're going to need to know how to grow things. It's not as simple as scratch the soil and go. You need to be able to identify good soil, bad soil. You need to have areas pre-prepped. You almost need to be gardening before you go to your bug out area, in the bug out area, just to prep the soil, because things happen. People are just under this idea that they're going to hide in a bunker, and 6 months later, they're going to come up and they're going to be able to just plant food and everything will be great. And they've never planted a seed in their life. They have no idea what kind of soil conditions they have. They have no idea what they're going to need. They don't even know tap water is bad when it comes to gardening. Let your water sit out. Let that chlorine evaporate before you ever attempt to use it on a growing plant. Worst thing you can do is garden hose water. Oh my God. Talk about stunting your yard and your garden. You're dumping chlorine directly on it. And God only knows what else is in there. Absolutely, Jerry. Absolutely. People don't understand that. They think, I need to do a prepping video because people don't understand the importance of this book. You now get it. When you switch over to nature and you just allow things to do what they do and you just give it a little push, it explodes. And that's not even gardening. That's just grass and yard care. Imagine what this stuff will do in a garden, Jerry. And the preppers don't get it. I'll be fine. I have food storage. Food storage runs out. There's not going to be anything to hunt. They're going to be hunted to almost extinction. We've already wiped out how many, and we go to a grid down. The first people out there hunting are going to be the people who had no storage. So understanding vermiculture, understanding composting, understanding 21 days, you can have compost ready and be applying it to soil. 30 days after that, you can be pulling radishes for one, okay? Radishes right out of the garden. Direct food, 30 days. So you're talking 2 months prep time just to get started. Do you have the right amendments? Is the soil correct? Is it pH balanced? Is it this? Is it that? Preppers don't get it. They don't have all the details. There's so much more involved. Gardening, yard care, this is the warm up. Take your hat off to your gardeners and your farmers. They get it. These other preppers that are just, well, I got my duffel bag, I'm good to go. I've got my backpack, I'm good to go. I've got my, No, you're not. No, you're not. You got to deal with the seeds. You got to deal with canning. You've got to deal with food storage for the winter. There's a lot more involved here. This book is a whole lot more important than people are giving it an understanding. This is just helping you understand what's possible. You apply this to gardens, step back. You take the rest of the knowledge that I'm putting out and apply that. But, let's say we don't go to grid down. Let's say we don't do this, that, or the other. Do you trust the food that we're currently getting? They're still turning 5G on. We're all still going to get radiated. Do you trust the food in the grocery stores? Do you know how many people walk through a grocery store on their cell phone and walk right past all this so-called fresh, organic food, radiating it with their cell phones? Every bit of that food, every bit of the canned goods, everything inside those stores is being irradiated uncontrollably by the amount of cell phones walking through that store on a daily basis. Is it safe food? That's the point. They're pushing everything in the GMO styles, and the first things to die off in the GMO world is the food web, right on up through the worms, and right on up through the... You can't stress how important it is. You go to these prepping channels and you talk about this stuff, and they glaze right past the gardening aspect. They glaze right over. I don't need to know that. I got a bag of seeds. You're not going to be able to just scratch the ground and get something to grow. If you don't understand planting and you don't understand gardening up front, you're not going to understand what's going on when your plants are dying, because you're going into toxic soil. You're on a hilltop versus being down in a valley with better soil. These are all things people just don't remember and don't understand. They think they're good to go, yet oh, I'll bet it is, Jerry. I'll bet it is. See, it's just people aren't understanding the importance of this book, the importance of the knowledge that Elegant has. They don't get it. My book's not selling. It's sitting still on the shelves. People don't understand how important it is. There's a lot of reminder stuff in here that even gardeners themselves go back and go, oh my God, I totally forgot that. This book's that important. I'm just coming off the composting series. We're dealing with the vermiculture. There's further to go. There's a lot further to go. All of this involves gardening. Gardening's not just throwing a seed in dirt and you walk away and you're going to have a plant in 60, 70, 80 days, 90 days. You're going to have corn. It's not that simple. It really is not that simple. But the more you understand, the more you do for yourself, the better off you're going to be, regardless whether we keep the grid or not, regardless of who's in the office sitting in the White House. You keep eating that food, that store-bought food, you're going to keep getting sick. and sicker and sicker and sicker. You got to get back in the nutritional mindset. You've got to get back into growing your own. You have to. You have to. Here comes 5G, everybody, whether you want it or not. And everybody that walks in that grocery store is killing the food in the grocery store. Thank you very much for carrying your cell phone. I don't know what to tell you. If you're not growing it at home, next topic will be mushrooms. There's a whole microscopic world there, absolutely phenomenal, that could save your life. Some of those spores, some of those mushrooms, they will grow faster than meat, and they have just the same nutritional value, especially if you're composting and understand that world. So pin all that stuff together, start adding these videos together, get your hands on my book. Find out what's really going on. Prep yourself. Prep your world. It's all good for you. So I'm going to kill this because this is a nice short one. And yeah, let's hang out, everybody. Let's just shoot the breeze and do our thing, and I'll be right back. But I'm going to end this video. So we'll talk to y'all later. Thank y'all for coming. Appreciate you watching my videos, especially if you make it to the end. Please type number 1 in the comments below to let me know you actually watched all 30 minutes. We'll see y'all later. I'll be back, everybody.